Hello, welcome. I'm Jennifer Roig-Francolí. I'm the creator of The Art of Freedom for Musicians. I'm a professional violinist myself and also a certified Alexander Technique teacher. I specialize in helping musicians with all kinds of stuff that gets in the way of success, joy in music making, and pretty much anything else related to living happily. So in today's broadcast, I want to talk about how to be happy even under very trying circumstances. And the reason that I chose this topic for this week, especially, and if you've been following my personal Facebook page, I have had quite a stressful week. In fact, I was going through just reviewing in my head what I've gone through in the last week, and it's quite a list here. It includes some interpersonal conflict that I was having with some people very close to me that ended up resolving itself, but it was very challenging at the time. Then I dealt with about 3 days, starting on Friday night, about 3 days of pretty intense abdominal pain that was inexplicable. I don't know if it was food poisoning or what, but I dealt with that, and it finally went away on Monday afternoon. Then on Monday evening, my house almost burned down because of a potential fire with a washer that they had just fixed in the morning. Obviously, they didn't fix it properly because there was a tremendous amount of smoke in the basement, and my smoke alarm went off. It almost created a fire, and if I hadn't been home, thank God I was home, because probably my house would have burned down. So that was Monday. And then I was just starting to recover and calm down on Tuesday, when on Wednesday I had to spend the afternoon in the emergency room with my son, who got a mild concussion from knocking into his brother when they were playing soccer in the backyard. So anyway, I was just reviewing all these things that happened to me in the last week, and they all ended up resolving themselves pretty quickly, I have to say. And part of it was because I have tools to deal with this. So it was hard. I'm not going to deny that it was hard getting through the last week. And some people told me, you know what, look at astrological charts, because things are happening in the sky. I don't know how much I believe in that, but I did kind of look it up, and it looks like a crazy period right now. But regardless of that, I was experiencing difficulty, and yet with the skills that I've learned over decades about how powerful the mind is and how to respond, that there are ways to respond to challenging circumstances that actually make you stronger. And it is possible to keep smiling throughout, and it's possible to actually use those lemons to make lemonade. So that's the topic of today's broadcast. I want to talk about how I did it, how you can do it, how you can learn how to do it, and go from there. Okay, so before I dive into the details about this, I do want to say hello to everybody showing up. I see Bob and Angel are here. Thanks for being here live. If you're here, please just tell me hello. I would love to have an interaction with everybody here. And if you have any comments or questions, feel free. Share whatever you like, and it would be good to have a back and forth if we can. We can always continue the discussion in my free Facebook group. And if you're not a member of that, by the way, I highly encourage you to join. We have a great time over there. There's a lot of stuff based on a holistic approach to music making that people seem to really enjoy. I know I do. So here's the link to join the Musicians Mind Body Practice Tribe, just so you have it in case you're not a member yet. So let's dive in. And the first question I want to ask is, what is happiness? And it seems like that's an easy question. Well, it is an easy question, but the answer is not so simple. In fact, I was having a short discussion about this with my older son, who just finished a philosophy degree, actually. And he is convinced that nobody knows what happiness is, and it's not so simple. And when I started to think about it, it's maybe not so simple, or it is incredibly simple. But I was thinking about what I would how I would define it right now for me this week. And what came to me is that I'm happy when I have something I can do to bring myself up when I notice that I'm going down. So with all these experiences I've had in the last week that I just outlined for you at the beginning, each of those situations caused a reaction in me. First of all, there was the interpersonal conflict with someone close to me. That is the hardest, not the hardest, but one of the hardest things for me is to deal with a conflict in a close relationship that I feel like it's hopeless and there's nothing I can do about it. So when I get to that point, I feel my body getting tight and I feel my energy going down. Does anybody else feel like that? If you have a conflict in a relationship, I'd love to hear. But this happens to me a lot. This is something I'm working on. Not a lot, but I do have this issue that I'm very, very aware of, that when I'm butting heads with somebody and it's just not going anywhere, my habitual reaction is to kind of pull down. And now if I don't catch myself, I'm going to keep going down and I'm going to start feeling depressed and upset and angry and hurt. And it's just a downward spiral. You know what I'm talking about? So I have learned through my practice of the Alexander technique and other practices I do, like meditation, I have learned to become really sensitive to what's going on in my system. And I notice sooner now than I did years ago when that happens, when I start to have a reaction that causes my energy to go down. Now, it's no good to know that it's going down if you don't have a tool to help yourself back up, right? So I have learned through these practices to do certain things with my thinking that change the direction of my energy, that prevent me from going down further and help me to redirect into a more positive and uplifting mood so that, yes, I can find my way back to feeling positive and hopeful and happy sooner. So that's what happened at first, okay? So there was an interpersonal conflict. Then the next thing that happened to me was physical, internal pain inside of my physical body. My whole abdomen was compressing and it was cramping from food poisoning or something. I don't know what, but it would not let up. I couldn't sleep all night. It was just, this is rare for me. I'm thankfully, knock on wood, a very healthy person, and I usually don't get stuff in my digestive system or my abdominal system. I'm generally quite energized and healthy, so I was not familiar with that kind of pain. I hadn't had it for years. So dealing with intense physical pain was my next challenge, and that was really hard. So what I did was every single time my attention dropped down to my abdomen to feel that pain, I noticed that my energy would go down further and my mood would go down further. And pretty soon I was starting to worry, like, is there something seriously wrong with me? Do I have serious food poisoning? What if this doesn't get better? What if I need to go to the hospital? You know, all this projecting into a future catastrophic situation. So I had to catch my thinking spiraling out of control very quickly and do something really practical and constructive with my thinking to not let myself go there anymore and do something different to bring myself up out of feeling that pain, because what you focus on, you get more of. And it's really clear with pain. If you focus on pain or discomfort in your body, you're going to get more of that experience. Try it out. Don't take my word for it. Just try it out. If you're in pain, what happens if you focus on the pain? I can pretty much guarantee you that it's going to get worse until you redirect your thinking. And Alexander technique tells you exactly how to do that. So that's what I had to keep doing over and over and over again, like 1,000 times that night when I couldn't sleep. I kept doing my Alexander constructive thinking, using my tools and getting myself up out of that. But it was like 3 days of that until finally on Monday afternoon, it disappeared. And part of what made it disappear was I have a person that I go to in rare situations. She's a Rubenfeld synergist. It's kind of related to Alexander technique, but it is a hands-on healing modality, and it's an energetic way of doing healing. And this person I go to is fantastic. So I usually don't need that, but on Monday I went, and Monday afternoon I was fine. She helped me change my thinking even more, and the hands-on healing energetic work really is what I needed in that moment, because it was bad. Okay, so dealing with physical internal pain, you need tools to deal with that. Then there was the frustration with practicing. Anybody else out there ever get frustrated when you practice? Let me hear it. Right, it's you know, practicing should be fun, right? But it is not always fun, and sometimes it's downright difficult. So I was dealing with some real frustration in my own practicing this week, and again, Alexander technique helped me not make too much of a big deal about it. I didn't let myself go there. I stopped practicing when it was no longer productive. I came back to it later, and I stopped thinking about it, and I got through that little period, and now I'm having fun practicing again. The washer fire was an external circumstance. That was extremely annoying, and I spent hours literally on the phone with the home warranty people and the appliance people, and and the whole fire department came. I had like 6 fire trucks in front of my house when it happened. But you know what was amazing is that the fire trucks came, I dealt with it. I went outside with my violins and my wallet, and I stood there, and there's nothing I could do. And I just thought about my Alexander technique, and it was so easy for me to look over at the neighbors, and I kind of went like this, and I smiled, and nothing I can do, so let's just wait and let the firemen do their stuff. No point in worrying. I've learned that it's possible to not worry, even if your house is possibly about to burn down. So that was a pretty extreme example, and I was really, honestly, if I may say so myself, proud of myself for rising to the challenge, literally overcoming it and maintaining my peace of mind despite what was going on around me. Last but not least, same thing happened yesterday. I had to go to the ER. I spent the whole afternoon at the ER. My son had a possible concussion. He had blurred vision, terrible headache. He was stumbling around. He'd lost his balance after he got hit in the head, and clearly was not well. So I drove him to the emergency room. He was, don't tell him this, but he was yelling at me the whole time. So I had to deal with that. He apologized later. He was just not himself, by the way. So all of that was incredibly stressful. But what did I do? I just kept doing my Alexander technique, staying present to my experience, and got him to the ER. And by the way, the signs were terrible, so I brought him to the wrong place and parked, and you know, one thing after another was just going wrong. Then we got to the ER, and he needed a CAT scan. But what could I do? There was absolutely nothing I could do. So there I was on my laptop, you know, doing my work because I had things I had to do. So I did my work, and I was smiling to the other people and talking with the nurses. And I'm like, you know, there was a little voice in my head that said, oh my God, I hope he doesn't have internal bleeding on his brain and brain damage. But I refused to listen to that and did my work, did my Alexander technique. And the good news was he was fine. Possible mild concussion, nothing showed up on the CAT scan, and he's getting better. So I got through that one. So I'm just sharing my personal experience of the last week with all these details because it was a crazy week. I mean, I usually have really good luck. Like I find, actually, after the fire department was here, actually while they were there, I'm standing there, I look down on the ground, and I see a 4-leaf clover. Out of hundreds of clovers, I look down, and the first thing I see is a 4-leaf clover. I was not even looking for them. That was a really nice reminder to me that said, Jennifer, don't worry. If this is all going to work out, and don't worry, you do actually have really good luck, so don't let this faze you. That was a nice little reminder. So I just wanted to share these things to show you and to share with you my experience. Now, before all the Alexander technique study and practice that I've done over many years, I would have been a nervous wreck. I would have fallen apart and cried so many times in the last week, it would have been ridiculous. And I would have needed lots of extra support from people close to me. And sure, I got a lot of extra support, but I didn't fall apart. And I didn't shed a single tear. You know, I was totally fine. So it is possible to change. If you have the propensity to fall apart when things get stressful, like I used to, and you want to change that, you can, but first you have to know what you want, right? So I have a few more things that I want to share with you and put up here on the screen, but let's come back to this definition of what is happiness. To me, you know, it's something that feels good, where you feel hopeful, it's a nice positive feeling, your energy is going up and out to the way you're designed naturally. You're not interfering with that natural energy. You are creative, you're spontaneous, you can respond to things, you're flexible, but it's so important, I think, to include in this definition of happiness, that if you notice that you're going down, you can notice it and do something immediately. You can take responsibility and take charge of your mind and change your thinking in such a way that doesn't allow you to go down further, but gives you the strength to withstand the stress and overcome it, and again, make lemonade out of lemons. Really, it is possible to learn how to do this. So before I go on, I do want to just peek at the comments. I see some comments have come in. I really appreciate your support here. Some of you are congratulating me. Thank you. It was tough. Yes, thank you. I'm glad you're finding it useful, Maggie Ann. Great. Angel says interpersonal conflicts are difficult. Yeah, for me, it's the hardest. She says, the ones that seem like they can't be resolved, I walk away from. Yeah, sometimes that's the best thing to do. And she says, I hear what you're saying and respectfully disagree. Okay, I'd love to hear. Oh, I think you're disagreeing because you think I wouldn't walk away. No, I totally agree with you. There are times when you give up because it takes two. It takes two to want to improve a relationship. And if you just bang your head against the wall trying to fix something when the other person just doesn't want to, yeah, walk away, walk away. And if it's too much to handle, because we are not perfect and we don't have perfect skills, none of us, then absolutely, sometimes walking away is the best thing to do. I totally agree with you, Angel. In the situation I was referring to last week, I was close to doing that, all right? But this person was open enough to continue the conversation. And then when we did reach a stalemate, we were both able to drop it. And then we both walked away and continued along the day and got over it. But yes, and Angel says, yes, that's what I meant. Right. I totally agree with you, Angel. Nelson, hello. Nelson says, can you stand up and recreate the Blossom opening credits? And can you look up Blossom? I don't know what you're talking about. Sorry. Maybe you could be a little more specific. I don't know what you're talking about, but I'd love to respond if you can help me understand what you're asking. Okay, let me continue. Question, you have to know what you want. And deeply, I do believe that we all deeply want to be happy. So whatever the surface desires are, like I want to get along with so-and-so, or I don't want to have a health problem, I want to be out of physical pain, I want my house and my washer dryer to function normally without threatening a house fire. I want my son to be healthy, I want the people I love to be happy and healthy. So regardless of those more surface things, deep down it's because we want those things because we want to be happy and we want to feel good. So it's important to acknowledge that, and also to acknowledge and really own that we have the power up here, here and here and here. The whole self has the power to create the happiness that we want regardless of circumstances. Now, that's not to say that I mean, negative emotions are part of being human. Sometimes we feel hurt and we feel physical pain and we feel depressed and we grieve and we feel alone. All those things are human and they're not going to go away because they're part of being human. And we wouldn't even really want them to go away. But once you have experienced them, you have the power to make small changes, little by little, that take you up. Depending on the circumstances, it could take a longer amount of time or a shorter amount of time to bring yourself back up again. But you have the possibility of making a dramatic shift in direction of your energy. Either you're choosing to keep aiming down or you're choosing to aim up. That doesn't mean you're going to feel happy right away, but it does mean that you're taking a step in a different direction that down the road is going to bring you to a better state that's happier. Okay, so once you know that that's what you want, and by the way, that was supposed to have the number 1. This what do we want is like number 1. Once you know what you want and you know that you can take responsibility for that, then number 2, you've got to take action. All right, and action involves internal action first. And I was just talking about that with number 1. You need to recognize that you're taking yourself first. Your reactions they're instinctual, right? Most of them, they're like a startle response. It's a fear response. It's a survival response to go into this kind of a mode. But you don't want to stay stuck there. As soon as you notice that you're tightening and compressing and going down in that way because of fear, then you can choose. You can choose because you have the power to change your internal direction of energy. And as I said, it's just, you can make the tiniest bit of change, but that's everything when you change direction. Okay? It's not how much you change direction. It's just, did you change direction by thinking differently? And the way you do this, there are specific tools. That's not in the scope of this video, but there are very specific tools and things you can think to instantly shift and change your direction, even though you may not feel different for a while. So first, there's internal action. That's how do you respond to the external stimulus, right? First, you take internal action. Then there are often, not always, but often external actions you can take. Like Anshel said, sometimes you gotta just walk away from the situation. I had to call 911, right? I wasn't just gonna sit there and worry about the smoke in my basement. I grabbed my violins, I grabbed my son, my cat, and my wallet, and I called 911. You take action, right? Then, I drove my son to the ER, right? I figured out where to go. I called a friend to find out, a friend who really knew like which hospital should I take him to. I did that first, and then I got him there. And I drove 25 minutes further than the hospital 5 minutes down the road because it's a better hospital. And of course, he wasn't pleased about having to be in the car so much longer. He said, why didn't you just take me to the one 5 minutes away? Like, because I want to take you to the best hospital in case there's something wrong. So you take external action. Then, number 3, you got to just trust, wait, and keep aiming. What I mean by keep aiming is what I was talking about before. Keep aiming towards your internal upward energy. Right? And this is subtle, right? This isn't just about putting on a happy face and pulling yourself up, because that's just a different way to mask your feelings. This is not about masking your feelings. This is about acknowledging your feelings, accepting them, recognizing them, living them, and yet noticing that when you overfocus on them and indulge in staying with a downward feeling too long, you're going to go down further. So there's a time when you've got to change and not focus on those feelings anymore. Redirect your thinking in a way that eases up on your system and releases the tension, right? When you're happy, there isn't a lot of excess tension. That's just how you're designed, to be free and easy and open. And when fear gets in the way and you get stuck in that, then you're not allowing the healing, positive, upward flow of energy to happen. Okay? So this has its own timing. You've got to trust that your system knows. It really does know how to come back into balance. But sometimes you got to wait, right? And depending on the circumstance and depending on your level of skill in applying these tools, it could take more or less time to change how you actually feel. Sometimes it can take days or weeks if you're not very skilled or the circumstances are extremely traumatic, right? So these circumstances of mine in the last week, they were big, but they resolved themselves very quickly. I was very fortunate that they all resolved themselves. And then I got hit with another one, but then it resolved itself. So I've been able to kind of move through this last week like riding waves, ups and downs, and maintaining my composure by being very conscious of how I've been thinking in response to these events has allowed me to stay balanced and honestly happy throughout. I was worried, I was scared, I was upset, I was angry, I was all kinds of stuff, irritated, annoyed at so many things in the last week, and yet I kept bringing myself back, and here I am, and I'm having a great day. So that's so important. Trust, wait, and keep aiming, because this too shall pass, and it always does, sooner or later. So I'm going to come back to the comments here and see what else is showing up here. Oh, Angel says choice of hospital around here makes a big difference. Yes, it does. We have a lot of hospitals around here, and my friend has worked in the hospital system for decades, and she knows. So I called her up. Hey, where should I take my son? So she told me where to go. Maggie Ann says, thank goodness I didn't stay stuck there in that depression. Oh, yes, yes, yes. It's too easy to get stuck in a down feeling, and it's so important. First of all, it's hard to do by yourself. It is really important. Like, don't discount the power of, actually I made a little note about this too, don't forget the power of supportive community and expert guidance, right? And there are specific tools, right? And we need them. Everybody needs them, okay? So, and Bob says, hey Bob, actually I was chatting with Bob yesterday while I was at the ER. Bob says, it occurred to me today while struggling with a passage in a Scarlatti sonata that my temporary inability to master a passage isn't connected to my self-worth. Ooh, that's a good one. Really, 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 really good. Yes, we all have our own timing in learning things. And we actually slow down the timing when we start connecting it to self-worth. Like, what's wrong with me? I should be able to learn this faster, that kind of stuff. No, we all, as musicians, we have our own timing. And some things are more difficult than others, and everyone's different. But it's always about a stimulus that happens, like not being able to master this passage today or tomorrow or this week. A stimulus happens, and then it's how do we think about it? Do we think about it in a way that causes us to go down, like, what's wrong with me? When you think that way, it's like, I'm never going to get this. I might as well give up, right? That kind of thinking causes downward pull and compression. And you're not going to be happy if you think that way. And that's not what you want. So you can always notice, like, you catch yourself thinking things that are tied to your self-worth. And Bob, I think it's great. You caught yourself. Bravo. That's huge. And then you realize, hey, I don't have to think that way. I don't have to make this about my self-worth. I'm just not being able to play that passage. So big deal. Maybe tomorrow it'll be a little better. And if I keep doing my work and I don't get sucked into it, and then I will have more ease in my body and less tension. When I have more ease and flexibility and openness in my psychophysical system, then everything can move more easily. Musical and creative ideas can flow more easily. And yeah, you learn faster. So that's great. I love that you wrote that. Thanks for sharing that, Bob. We can all learn from that. Alice, hello, Alice. Alice says, we all need to take some deep breaths and press on. Going through a divorce, my house was broken into. Oh, I'm sorry about both. I quit smoking and I began playing my dad's violin for relaxation. Life is now much better. Hey, You turned it around. Bravo. Yes. And I've also gone through a divorce, and so I feel for you. It is never easy, even if it's what you want. So you were able to quit smoking. That's great. And you started playing your dad's violin. Ah, I love it. Thank you. That's great. Okay. Yes, Maggie Ann says, and don't compare ourselves to other experts. Oh, yes. Yes. It's very hard to do sometimes because we all have an ideal that we aspire to, right? But then if you measure yourself against that, it's easy to start feeling like you're inferior, which isn't the case. You're just at a different stage in your learning, right? So yes, comparisons are a way to take ourselves down. We want to not do that and have control over our thinking. That's what it really comes down to. So thank you, everybody, for these wonderful comments that you've put here. And keep them coming. If you have anything else you want to add, or if you're watching the replay, feel free to add your comments and also tag me anytime if you have any more thoughts you want to add or questions for me, okay? So I do want to remind everybody, if you're not a member of my free Facebook group, please come join us. It's the Musicians Mind Body Practice Tribe, and I put the link, I think, towards the top of the comments here today. And I also want to refer you to check out my Mindset Power Toolkit for Musicians. This is, and I'm actually going to put the link to that in the comments here in just a second, because if you want to learn the specific tools that I've been alluding to and not giving specifics about yet, I would love for you to just check this out, because it gives you the foundational mindset to give you real tools that you can use in a daily practice to make real fundamental changes in your life when you apply this. So here is the link to the Musician's Mindset Power Toolkit. And the other thing I wanted to let you know about is that, of course, all of this applies to being a musician. Now, today I was talking in general about stressors. And I was talking about specific things that have happened in my last week. And one of those did have to do with frustration in practice. But the rest of it was really more about my life. And yet, my life is about me, my whole self. And it's my whole self that I bring to my violin every day. If my whole self is suffering, then I bring more tension to my violin, and my practicing is going to suffer, because you can't separate how you are from how you are when you practice, right? So that's where the mindset is paramount. You've got to look deeply at your mindset if you want to learn how to make music with much more ease and less tension, and improve everything you do with it, from your technique to your musical expression. You've got to have a sense of your overall well-being, and that starts with mindset. So if you don't know what I do online, I do teach the Alexander Technique online, but I teach special kind of Alexander Technique that is taught hands-free. It's called Primal Alexander, and I incorporate that into my approach to the Alexander Technique called the Art of Freedom. Primal Alexander is a hands-free approach developed by my partner, Mio Morales. He's an Alexander Technique teacher who's been teaching for like 4 decades, and he has adapted what he's learned to the internet. And so I teach almost exclusively online now. And right now, I actually have 3 openings I wanted to let you know about for my 6-month private coaching practice, in which I tailor design a program to you according to exactly what you want to work on in your life, in your music making, whether you're an amateur beginner or an elite professional who's been playing all over the world for decades. It doesn't matter what your skill level is. We will sit down together and put together a comprehensive plan for how you can start playing with more ease and just having more ease in your life and be happier as a musician. So if you're curious about that, just ask me about the private coaching. Again, I have 3 openings left, and I am very confident that those are going to go really quick. So private message me or email me if you want more details, and I'd be happy to talk with you personally about that. So I think that's about it for today, but thank you everybody so much for showing up with me and listening and for your interest in these topics. Let's go over to the Musicians Mind Body Practice Tribe now and continue the conversation. And if you're watching the replay, don't forget to join the group, and happy practicing. So take these things to heart and have fun. Be happy. Don't forget the power of the smile. I'm going to leave you with that. And lots and lots and lots of love always. Bye-bye.